Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'll talk about the process we are all currently right now fasting before lunch, and I'll try to give you some insight about how fasting affects IgG glycome. So I would like to start first with definition of fasting. So according to Britannica, is abstinence from food or drink or both for health, ritualistic, religious, or ethical purposes. The abstination may be complete or partial, lengthy or short duration or intermittent. So you can see from definition it says nothing. It means that almost everything should be fasting, right? And when we look at it from scientific point of view, it represents a problem. Because when we want to study fasting, it's important to define what kind of fasting. Because of that, experts from the fasting field, they met up and they published last year an international consensus on fasting terminology. And they define different types of fasting, which are now studied by different, of course, groups. And I'll define some of them which I'm going to touch a bit during my presentation. So the first one is water-only fasting, which refers to fasting regimen where only water is consumed for a certain period of time. Then we also have short-term fasting, which refers to fasting regimens with a duration of 2 to 3 days. Everything longer than 3 days of fasting refers to as prolonged or long-term fasting. Then we have this highly popular name of fasting, intermittent fasting. But when we look at its definition, it refers to repetitive fasting period lasting up to 48 hours each. And intermittent fasting includes fasting regimens of 1 day fasting per week, or 2 separate or consecutive fasting days per week, which also include alternate day fasting, which means that that refers to altering a day of eating ad libitum and a day of water-only fasting. And intermittent fasting also includes something what's called time-restricted eating, and I think that's something what we mostly have in mind when we talk about intermittent fasting. It's a period when food intake and the consumption of caloric beverages is restricted to a specific period of time during the day, but fasting window must be at least 14 hours. They also define some special kind of fasting, of which is, I'll mention just one which is important for my presentation today, is Buchinger therapeutic fasting. That is a fluid-only fasting regimen, allowing for a maximum of 500 kilocalories a day and lasting at least 5 days, and is usually accompanied by bowel cleansing procedures and preceded and followed by a few days of calorie-restricted, easily digestible diet. So why is fasting is getting more and more attention in scientific community? Because we realize that fasting actually has a huge impact on human health, and different type of fasting are showing more and more effects on different aspects of human health. I'll just mention a few of them. So it is shown that prolonged water-only fasting of 17 days had impact on different cardiometabolic risk factors such as blood pressure, low-density lipoprotein, and high-sensitivity CRP. Also in diabetes, it was shown that in a randomized clinical trial that intermittent fasting, that kind of intermittent fasting, what I mentioned earlier, alternative day fasting, actually have a better outcome on glycemic outcomes and weight loss compared to diabetic drugs such as metformin and empagliflozin. Also, it was shown that also in a randomized control trial that it significantly reduced glycated HB hemoglobin. And it was interesting in that study they showed that only intermittent fasting was able to reach co-primary endpoint, which included reduction of glycated hemoglobin of 3 millimoles per mole, insulin dose reduction of 10%, and weight reduction of 2%. Also, it has impact on nervous system. It was shown that actually improves mental well-being. Also has impact on HDL cholesterol efflux, and it was also shown that different kind of intermittent fasting have impact on body weight and other cardiometabolic risk factors. Of all those kind of intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting actually showed the most benefit. But none of these studies included glycans, and they are completely neglected currently in the literature regarding fasting. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to see what's going on in fasting and glycans. But I know that you're excited to hear what's going on with glycans, but I'll just go one step back and mention this study published last year in Nature Metabolism, which looked at what's going on with human proteome during fasting. So it was water-only fasting, so people fasted for 8 days, and they noticed that actually the most significant changes happened after 3 days of fasting. And what was quite interesting to me to see, and also those proteins which changed are already, which, as I already mentioned, are associated with cardiometabolic diseases. So I was wondering what's going on with IgG glycome. And as you know, half-life of immunoglobulin G is 3 weeks. So I was wondering, is it possible even to change in such a short time, such a short period? And I did a small experiment on only one person for whom I didn't need unethical approval. So I did it on myself. So what I noticed that actually, at least in my case, IgG glycome changes rapidly. So you can see that already after 24 hours of water-only fasting, something already happened. These are replicates of that fast, and that agalactosylated acylated structures actually decreased. And I also took samples 14 days after I again started to eat. And after that, they went up to the level higher than they were at the beginning. But of course, then the galactosylated structures, they were going up during whole period of fasting, and they also continued to going up even 14 days after fasting ended. And you can see also that monogalactosylation also increased in that period. So overall, galactosylation increased 2 weeks after I ended my fasting. Regarding cellulation, it increased during period of fasting, but decreased once in post-fasting period. Corpusculation also slightly decreased during fasting, but increased in post-fasting period, which means that that's the structure which we know that has anti-inflammatory properties, and of course it is accompanied by decrease of presence of bisecting gluten. So when I noticed that, I contacted Buchinger-Wilhelmi clinic in Germany to see if we can repeat the study on higher number of samples. They were willing to share the samples from a Genesis study. So this is a study of 40 participants, which were on 250 calorie a day fasting, and they fasted for 9 days. And they took blood samples at the baseline, at the end of fasting intervention, 1 month after fasting ended, and 4 months after the end of fasting. So what happened to IgG glycome in that period? You can see that N-acetyl bisecting glucagon actually started to increase during fasting, and 1 month after the end of fasting, and decreased after 4 months of the end of fasting. Core fucosylation increased in the fasting period, but decreased 1 month after the end of fasting, and at the end it was at a higher level on average than as it was at baseline. For agalactosylated acylated structure, it was interesting to me to see that actually what happened in my case, just for 3 days of fasting, that actually it decreased during fasting and went up 1 month after fasting. What was the same as in my case, but also you can see here that at the end it again dropped 4 months after fasting, which means that fasting has long-term impact on glycome. The opposite effects, of course, was observed for the galactosylated structures, and sialylated structures behaved as in my case. They increased during fasting period, while decreased 1 month and 4 months after the end of fasting. In parallel with that story, I wanted to test on larger number of participants if that 3-day fasting, because 9 days of fasting is not easy for everyone. So 3-day fasting is more easy to perform. So I wanted to test that protocol, which I tested at the beginning on myself. So we recruited 19 participants, and they were instructed to first they perform a 2 days pre-study intermittent fast, and after that they were instructed to know that they don't take any caloric food or beverages for 3 days. So it was kind of water-only fasting, but stimulants such as nicotine or caffeine were allowed during that period, and we also took some questionnaires from them to have insight of the behavior of how much weight they lost and so on. Sampling was done day before fasting. We took blood stains and whole blood for some participants, and took samples at the end of fasting, but before the first meal, and 40 days after the last day of fasting. What happened with IgG glycome in that period? Again, those agalactosylated acylated structures, they start dropping in fasting period, and they continue to drop to decrease during post-fasting period. Also, in the opposite direction went the galactosylated structures, while in this case silylation went up during fasting but continued to increase during post-fasting period, which is the opposite what was seen actually in 2 other studies. Of course, these all IgG glycome traits are some in glycan age, so at the end glycan age actually started decreasing during fasting and continued to decrease even in that period, post-fasting period. As I said, for 4 participants we also had plasma samples and wanted to see what's happening in plasma glycome. In plasma glycome, low branching increased during fasting and started decreasing after food introduction. It was mainly driven by agalactosylated, monogalactosylated, and acylated structures, while high branching, of course, went to the opposite direction. It started decreasing and went up after food introduction, and it was mainly driven by 3 galactosylated structures. To sum up all those, so IgG glycome, it is able actually to change in really short time period, changes which are consistent across all those studies are that agalactosylation is going down during fasting period, while degalactosylation and sialation is going up during fasting. But in post-fasting period, core fucosylation is going up as well as degalactosylation, and degalactosylation is actually increasing due to lowering of sialation. So at the end, I would like to thank you, people who helped me with this story. So from Genos, Barbara, Nina, Jelena, and Frano, from University of Rijeka to Ivona, and Robin from Buckingham. So thank you.